Welcome to part 2 of anxiety. In part 1, we discovered that anxiety is not an illness. It's a biological response to a scary or worrying situation. And the biological response affects the way you think and feel and can cause your body to have a number of body signs, physical symptoms, as discussed in part 1. The unpleasant body signs may cause you to take anxious actions to make the body signs go away. As with the last part, there's no homework to be done, but there are questions to ask yourself, marked as QUS in the presentation. Some of the graphics and content are courtesy of NHS Education Scotland, CAMS and the Let's Introduce Anxiety Management Liam project currently running in Kirkintilloch High School. You'll learn today that there are things you can do to avoid getting stuck in an anxiety trap and what you can do when your anxiety alarm goes off. You'll learn about strategies and techniques which will help you manage and control the body signs and symptoms you may experience. You will be given links to a couple of apps which might be helpful as well. So remember this. This is a scary, worrying situation that may trigger your anxiety alarm. And the anxious thought is, I'm going to be lunch. And the feelings are anxiety, worry, or fear. The body signs are faster breathing, pumping heart, tense muscles, etc. This prepares you to fight, flight, or freeze. But you choose your action, you challenge it, or avoid it. 21st century Scotland, we won't meet a saber-toothed tiger, and the worries or stresses we have nowadays are different from our cavemen ancestors. We might worry about things like friendships, changes in our family, moving to a new school, or exams. And nowadays, our alarms not only keep us safe from getting physically hurt, but they also try to keep us safe from being hurt emotionally. These things can trigger our anxiety alarm, even though a fight, flight, or freeze response won't help these kind of worries. These situations aren't dangerous, but our body has got used to setting off the alarm, which is designed to keep us safe from the old dangers, and so reacts to anything it thinks could be dangerous to us using our fight, flight, or freeze response. This means we can have some false alarms that happen when our alarm system thinks there's a danger, and there isn't, but it still sets off our fight, flight, or freeze response. Let's look at the anxiety trap. But firstly, what is a trap? Something that can be hard to get out of, but not impossible. And the more often you get out of a trap, the easier it becomes. And it gets easier because you learn how to do it, and it gives you confidence and, importantly, evidence that you can do it again. So let's look with more detail at the anxiety trap. So a scary situation can create anxious thoughts. This causes unhelpful feelings like anxiety, which can set off our anxiety alarm. Our bodies then react in unhelpful ways with signs and signals, as we learned earlier in part 1. We then take an action, like avoiding, to get rid of the unpleasant body signs. Anxious actions can get us caught in an anxiety trap, where the harder we try to feel less anxious, the more anxious we become. Here's a scenario, a situation with an anxiety trap. The situation is you're at a party or a crowded place. Your anxious thoughts are, everyone's looking at me, nobody wants me here, I can't cope. You feel anxious. Your body signs, your alarm goes off, your body signs then start feeling sick, breathe faster, you get dizzy, muscles tense, your heart beats faster, and your face goes red. You decide that you're going to reduce these unpleasant feelings by leaving the party and going home early. So, if we look at the bubbles, where it says anxious thoughts, having thoughts, anxious thoughts like everyone's looking at me, can set off your body's alarm system, which is the fight, flight, or freeze response, and it reacts as if these thoughts are true and gets your body ready for action. And because your anxious body signs feel really unpleasant, the instinct is to do something to stop you from feeling anxious, and that means leaving the party. So the next time we're faced with a similar situation, we're likely to feel even more anxious and have even less confidence that we can cope. And so the anxiety trap continues. Although it's easy for any of us to get caught in an anxiety trap, the good news is that any positive changes we make to our body signs, our anxious thinking, and our anxious actions has a positive impact on all the other parts. like a domino effect where each small change makes a bigger difference. And if we're able to find ways to turn down or turn off the body's alarm system, this can help us feel more able to stay in situations where we feel anxious and helps us to feel much more comfortable. The more often we do this, the easier it becomes. So look at the example in the next slide, and we will change some of the body signals by using anxiety tools, which you will learn about in the next few slides. So the situation is the same. You're at a party, crowded place. Your thoughts are the same. Everyone's looking at me. No one wants me here. I can't cope. Feeling anxious. Your body alarm goes off. But if you can practice anxiety tools like calm breathing, this can turn down the body signals. And if you feel less anxious, you might decide to stay at the party. So the next time you're faced with a similar situation, you might feel more confident about a party or busy places. And you now have evidence that you can do it and you've done it before. So these are the anxiety tools to help you manage and control anxiety we're going to look at. Calm breathing, calm images, safe places, coping thoughts, and distraction. We'll look at each of these in the next few slides, but all of these tools can help disrupt the cycle of anxiety, make you feel better, and get you out of the anxiety trap. And that image on the right-hand side of the screen there, break the circle. You break the circle, you can escape the trap. So calm breathing, one of the most powerful ways of switching down or switching off the body's alarm system and reducing feelings of anxiety is by practicing calm breathing. It's also a great anxiety tool because you can use it anywhere you go and no one has to notice you doing it. It means you can do it in corridors, classrooms, or in big crowds like assembly or lunch halls. So you might remember that when we feel anxious and our body's alarm system goes off, our breathing gets faster. This is to get more oxygen to our muscles to help us fight or run away. If our body's not active, fighting or flighting, the amount of oxygen that we breathe in and carbon dioxide that we naturally breathe out becomes unbalanced. This can sometimes lead to us feeling dizzy or lightheaded, feeling sweaty, or having a tingly feeling in fingers and toes. And when we're anxious, we tend to take more shallow breaths, and we might feel that we can't catch our breath. Although it doesn't feel like it, the problem is actually that we're breathing too quickly and not breathing out for long enough. If we slow down our breathing and make sure we have long breaths out, this helps us to switch down our body's alarm system. Just try it. Sit or lie down and make sure you're comfortable. You can close your eyes if you like. If you're doing it in a classroom or a corridor, find a way to be discreet or sneaky. And what to do, breathe slowly and smoothly. Breathe in through your nose and count. For example, 1, 2, 3. Then pause for a second. Then breathe out through your mouth for longer. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe into your tummy. Try to breathe into your tummy rather than your chest. You can imagine filling up your tummy with air like a balloon when you breathe in, and it should shrink back down as you breathe out. It can help to place one hand on your lower tummy and one hand on your chest at the top of your lungs. When you breathe in and out, only the hand on your tummy should move. This is often called belly breathing, or to use the posh phrase, diaphragmatic breathing. Find a slow rhythm that you're comfortable with. You don't have to count to 3 and 5. Some people don't like counting at all and prefer just to breathe in and out slowly and smoothly. Calm breathing is a skill that needs lots of practice. Best to practice for a few minutes every day at times when you already feel quite calm. For example, lying in bed at night. Once you've got the hang of it, you can then try it out at times when you feel anxious. It can take a couple of minutes for your anxiety alarm to gradually switch down. If you have a smartphone or tablet, you could download the Hospital app, it's free, and within the app there's a section called Activities, and the calming breaths and tummy breathing are both really good ways to practice calm breathing. Another free app called Safe Spot has an exercise called Breathing within the audio section. You might like that instead. Calm images in safe places can be very helpful. When you feel anxious about being or going somewhere, thinking about a safe place or a calming image can disrupt the anxiety trap. Might be the cuteness of a pet, or sitting outside with the sun in your face. Remembering and thinking about a place or time when you felt relaxed can help break the cycle of anxiety. When you think of a calm image, a safe space, use all your senses. What can you smell? What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? Coping thoughts are a very good way for you to get evidence of things that you've already done. So, when we have anxious thoughts, our brains might jump straight to worst case scenarios such as, I'll never be able to cope. This is a disaster. I can't do this. I can't manage. I could never do that. For example, if you're revising for exams and you're not feeling confident and you're feeling anxious, you might think, I won't do well. I'm going to fail. These types of thoughts can cause us to feel even more anxious, which can lead to more body signs of anxiety, which can then cause more anxious thoughts and feeling. The anxiety cycle again. With our exam example, having thoughts that you will fail will probably distract you from doing as well as you could have. Instead, if you use a coping thought, you have the best chance at doing your best. We can use coping thoughts as tools to try and break down the anxiety cycle and bring our anxious feelings down. And coping thoughts can be surprisingly helpful. For example, I've done that before. It's okay to feel nervous, but I can manage. I'm just anxious, and anxiety isn't dangerous, I'll be fine. This happened before, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. The great thing about coping thoughts is that they provide evidence of a time when you have successfully challenged your anxiety. Distracting ourselves from unhelpful thoughts can stop an anxiety cycle and therefore can stop anxiety from getting worse. This might work in the short term and can allow us space to try other things to bring our anxiety down. Distracting just means trying to put our attention on something else. For example, if we're anxious about going to an event and we get stuck in an anxiety cycle where we keep thinking about what might happen and how we feel, distraction would be doing something which means we stop thinking about the event for a while. It might help if you're outside a classroom, waiting to go on stage, about to do a presentation, etc. Try something like counting backwards from 50 in threes. 50, 47, 44, 41, etc. Focusing on that will soon stop you worrying about the situation that's making you anxious because you need to concentrate. And remember that distraction is not a solution, but it breaks the cycle, gets you out of the anxiety trap. The good thing is that it provides you with evidence that you can control your anxiety, and this should create another coping thought. So here's a question for you to think about. Think of a time when you've distracted yourself from something that was making you worried or anxious. Remember this? This is the anxiety thermometer we looked at in part 1. And the tools which you've learned about today will all help bring down your anxiety and drop you down the anxiety thermometer. But like any new skill, you must practice. Our experience is that calm breathing is the tool which works most effectively to control the physical signs of anxiety. But use whichever tool works for you. Here's a final point for you to think about. Don't dwell on your anxiety or spend all your time talking to people about it or thinking about it. This is called ruminating. The problem with spending lots of time worrying or talking about worries is that the more we think about and talk about worries, the bigger they seem to grow and the more likely we think they are. Of course, it's good to share worries, but if we spend lots of time thinking and talking about worries, it can make our anxiety grow bigger. And sometimes we might get worried about our body signs if we don't know that they're just caused by our body's alarm system and they aren't dangerous or a sign that something is wrong with our bodies. I hope you've enjoyed these 2 presentations about anxiety. Remember that anxiety tools will need to be practiced. Don't be disappointed if they don't work for you straight away. You need to practice, practice, practice. And above all, remember that you can manage your anxiety and you will then be providing yourself with evidence of how you can do that. Thanks for listening.